Greetings, I'm Mrs. Bruno, and I'm here to present to you this flipped classroom lesson on fallacy deep dive. And pretty much we're going to take a deep dive into different fallacies that either myself or Dr. Milad have already explained to you in a more in-depth way to increase your understanding. So to begin with, a fallacy is a flaw in reasoning that weakens or invalidates an argument. Sometimes people use them intentionally to deceive or manipulate you, and other times they happen by accident due to us being biased, having a favor for one side, or carelessness where we're not even thinking. So here we're going to go ahead and take a look at several examples so you can spot them in the wild. We have attacking the argument-based fallacies, such as the straw man fallacy, where the mistake a person makes is misrepresenting a simple proposal or idea as an extreme wasteful one to make it easier to attack. For instance, you say, we should invest more in public libraries. And someone tells you, oh, so you want to bankrupt our city by wasting money on old books that nobody reads anymore. Okay, clearly that's not what you said. Someone has hyperbolized it, meaning exaggerated what you're trying to propose. That's a straw man incident. Okay, a straw man fallacy. Moving forward, we have the false cause fallacy, where the mistake here is when there's an assumption that because two things are happening simultaneously, meaning at the same time, then they must be related to the cause of one another. So for instance, since the 1950s, global temperatures have risen and the number of pirates has decreased. These two things have happened at the same time. However, we cannot prove that they're related. Therefore, it's a false cause fallacy. Next, we have diversion deflection fallacies. A lot of the times you'll see these fallacies during political debates. So for instance, ad hominem. The mistake here is when there's an attack against the speaker's personal background, beliefs, credentials, or even character, instead of addressing the validity of their proposal or idea. So for instance, my opponent says, you say we should switch to green energy, but you're a college dropout. So what do you know about science? So again, taking someone's credentials and pretty much perpetuating that they are ignorant within even partaking in the discussion of their proposal. Or too, quote, cute, where the mistake here is rejecting advice or an argument simply because the person giving it doesn't follow it themselves. So for instance, someone mentions, my doctor told me I need to exercise more, but he's overweight, he's obese, so I'm not going to listen to him. So because he's offering you the advice, you bypass that because he's not simply following it. Huge problem. And then we have the slippery slope fallacy. This transpires when a person claims that a small step is going to lead to a certain chain of related events, and typically it's negative, okay, without any proof. So for instance, let's say I go to the Board of Education meeting and I'm having an issue with student autonomy here, students making choices, and I say, hey, if we let students choose their own seats, next they'll want to choose their own grades, and soon the whole education system will collapse into chaos. Okay, so ultimately, these chain of events are just coming from my mind. I have no evidence. Okay. Moving forward, shifting the burden fallacies. Okay, whereas we like to pretty much shift the hardship on someone else. So for instance, the burden of proof fallacy. Assuming a claim is true because no one has proven it false yet, okay? So that burden lies within the person making the claim. So for instance, I believe there is a teapot orbiting Mars. If you can't prove there isn't, then my claim must be true. So pretty much implying that without any evidence, then anything that I say is justifiable. Also, we have the special pleading fallacy, whereas the mistake being made is creating a unique exception, okay, or moving a boundary when a claim is proven wrong or unprovable on your end. So for instance, if I were to say I have psychic powers, but they only work when skeptics are in the room to block the energy, okay, I'm making an exception for me that only when skeptics are in the room, that's when I don't have that power. All right. Next, we have the genetic fallacy. This fallacy pretty much judges a claim on where it came from, the origin of the claim, okay, versus the actual merit. While a source might be unreliable, some facts could be true. So pretty much we're arguing upon where that claim derived from, where it came from. So that news report was published in a tabloid. So the weather forecast they printed must be wrong. Okay, so the person is implying pretty much maybe if it came from a televised weather program or you heard it on the radio or via a broadcast, then that would be justifiable. But because it came from a tabloid, ultimately it must be wrong. We have linguistic and question traps, fallacies such as the ambiguity fallacy, whereas there's a double entendre, meaning there's a double meaning. One word means two meanings, okay? Two different meanings, okay? And is used to mislead or misrepresent the truth. For instance, let's say I'm a police officer and I pull up to you on the curb because I noticed that you're parked in an area where you're not supposed to be parking at. And I asked you why. And you mentioned to me, well, the sign said fine for parking here. So I parked here since it was fine. Okay. So again, we're talking about fine as in a penalty where we have to pay money versus fine with as being a state of being or a feeling. Okay. Additionally, we have loaded questions. Here's the trap here. When a person asks you a question that has an assumption built in, where like no matter how you answer it, it just makes you seem guilty. So for instance, let's say that you're having a debate with someone and someone says, does your mother know you're a thief? And clearly you know that you're not a thief, but now you're having to defend not being a thief. Okay. So that's what makes it loaded. Then we have circular reasoning. And sometimes teachers and even parents can use this a lot, whereas the trap is here a conclusion that is based on the premise, meaning the statement of the argument itself. For example, the law is good because it's the law. Okay, so because it's the law, then it's good. Or have you ever asked your parents why you can't do something? And then they say, because I said so. So obviously, because they said so, that means that you can't do it. That's circular reasoning. We have the gambler's fallacy, whereas pretty much this is when you view that anything that happened in the past is not connected to the future. Every spin or roll of a dice is a 50-50 chance. So for example, red has come up 6 times in a row on the roulette wheel. So the next spin is almost guaranteed to be black. We have no clue in proving that. We're just basing it off of a 50-50 chance, a flip of a coin, basically. Additionally, we have the personal incredulity fallacy, whereas when we make the mistake of assuming that because something is difficult to understand, it goes beyond our comprehension or we're ignorant towards it, then it must be untrue. For instance, I don't see how a bunch of gas and dust can turn into a whole galaxy. So the Big Bang Theory must be a lie. So basically, it's a lie based off of our own ignorance. We have patterns and anecdotes here. Okay, so for instance, the Texas sharpshooter, whereas a person makes the mistake of picking data to suit an argument while ignoring like the larger context. So let's say that I have the iPhone 17 and I say pretty much this is the best phone ever, and clearly Apple is the way to go. However, I ignored that all the previous iPhones, they had all these different malfunctions and so forth. So it's pretty much a claim to prove more so that one product is successful while ignoring all the failures of the other previous products. And then we have anecdotal fallacies. So this is pretty much where a person wants to stand on their personal experience or a personal story connected to them without any form of statistics, okay, or concrete evidence. So let's say that someone is informing you that smoking cigarettes is ultimately terrible, and you mention, hey, my grandpa smoked 20 cigarettes a day and lived to be 97. So smoking isn't really bad for you. So basically, based off of your experience, you make it seem as if it's a blanket experience for everyone else and as if there are no consequences to smoking cigarettes for everyone. Or the appeal to nature. And this happens quite often when individuals want to argue that just because something is natural It's ideal, it's better, it's the way to go. So, for instance, someone may say, hey, I don't understand why you're taking all these vitamins when you ultimately could go ahead and you can make your own smoothie full of fruits and vegetables. Okay. It's best to go the natural way versus taking a manufactured pill from a company that you don't know. That's an appeal to nature. All right, we're almost done here. Social and logical extremes. This happens quite often as well, especially within sports. So, for instance, the no true Scotsman fallacy, whereas we change the definition of a group so it can exclude an example that we don't want to necessarily support. It's called a counterexample. So, for instance, no real athlete skips practice, but John skips. Therefore, John isn't a real athlete. So, we pretty much personalize the definition to fit our claim. We have the middle ground fallacy. John says the sky is blue. Mike says the sky is red. Therefore, it must be blue. So that's whereas the answer is what's in the middle. We have the bandwagon fallacy, and someone had mentioned to me that the Super Bowl was a great example of this because their team necessarily wasn't winning. Then they jumped on the team that all of their family supported, like the Seahawks or something like that. So, assuming that popularity makes a claim valid or true. And then we have the black or white theory, whereas a person presents to you only two options but ignores that many more exist. So, for instance, if someone says to you, hey, what type of pizza you like? And you tell them sausage, and they say, no, you can only like pepperoni or pineapple. When we know that there are options such as sausage and meat lovers and chicken and barbecue chicken and so forth. There's so many different options. All right. So think about what fallacies that you can spot in the wild and try to identify one from a recent news headline or a social media post when you get the opportunity. So pause the video and let's try to do this now. All right. Welcome back. So then moving forward, we're going to go ahead and play a TikTok exemplar. Yes, we are using TikTok, a TikTok example in class. All right. So here we have a parody where the gentleman is pretty much he's role playing an argument with his girlfriend. And we're only going to see his point of view, as in from the camera's lens, but you'll hear the girlfriend's voice. All right. And some fallacies you may not have heard yet because there's a plethora, meaning many. Okay. And as he explains these fallacies, he'll be checking them off. Well, not necessarily explains, as he reenacts. All right. So let's check it out.
Appreciate when you make fun of me in front of my friends.
Well, you're really emotional right now. Maybe we should table this conversation.
I'm not emotional. I'm just trying to tell you how I feel.
No, okay. My mom also says that you can get very emotional. Maybe this is one of those instances.
No, you made a mean joke at my expense, and I have every right to be upset.
You cannot prove that joke was about you.
Well, who else would it be about? You literally said my girl.
It could be any girl. Like, if you loved me, you would give me the benefit of the doubt that not everything's about you.
No, you literally made a joke at my expense in front of my friends and embarrassed me.
Well, then if everyone was laughing, what was the problem?
Okay, so you are admitting you did make a joke about me.
No, oh my gosh, it's a joke. By definition, a joke can't be serious.
You're my boyfriend. Why would you insult me? That's so mean.
Okay, well, if I'm so mean, then why did I pay for lunch after? Is that so mean?
Oh my gosh, I don't even know what to say. I feel like I can't even trust you anymore.
Okay, well, fine. If you can't trust someone, well, then maybe you're just not ready for a relationship.
Can you please be an adult and have a serious conversation?
I'm being an adult. Yeah, I'm being an adult, but maybe you're the one raising your voice, so maybe you're not the one ready for a serious conversation.
I'm not raising my voice. I'm trying to tell you how I feel, and you're doing everything to ignore me.
I'm not ignoring you, but we do have the dinner reservation, and I don't know why we're not focusing on that.
Oh my gosh, I'm canceling the reservation.
Okay, well, fine. When we cancel the reservation, then I guess we'll just cancel the whole relationship.
Yeah, you know what? Maybe I should.
Okay. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, I guess I'm just the worst boyfriend ever because I made a joke.
I literally can't even do this anymore. I'm just gonna leave. Please don't call me.
It's gotta be a record.
All right. So just to backtrack here, he went over several different fallacies that we did not go over necessarily. So, for example, the appeal to authority, whereas because a figure such as maybe someone's mom or a teacher or pastor, someone who has authority, because they support a person's claim, then they want to convince you that they're ultimately right. Or the appeal to ignorance fallacy, where a person feels as if because you don't know something again, then ultimately your claim is invalid. Or an appeal to emotion, where a person feels that you should feel a particular way, whether here, as the gentleman mentioned, he said, you should love me enough, to believe me and so forth, or you should feel this way or that way to support my belief. Okay. So that's an appeal to emotion fallacy. A cherry picking fallacy, where ultimately people are selective within the information that they present and they ignore the full context of a situation. The begging the question fallacy, where a person takes one definition and applies it to their claim. Okay. And we talk about hasty generalizations, pretty much stereotypes and so forth. And the red herring fallacy is whereas in the midst of a claim, someone presents a distractor to try to distract you from what they are ultimately talking about. Okay. So this was great. All right. So what do we want for you to do? We want for you to participate in this project logic in motion assignment. And by we, I'm talking about Dr. Millard and I. Okay. All right. So there will be some different instructions for some of us here, whether you're in Dr. Millard's class or my class. Okay. All right. So ultimately, you're going to end up creating your own multimedia presentation. Do you have to put it on TikTok? Absolutely not. Okay. But you can use TikTok and different platforms to make your multimedia presentation. We want to go beyond the classroom. You could either do an audio presentation, a video presentation, or an animation to demonstrate how logical fallacies work in the real world and how to identify them. Okay. So ultimately, you're going to create this. It could be a parody, whereas you are role playing a particular situation, or maybe you can do a presentation where you're identifying different fallacies, such as like a video compilation. So you'll pull up different clips and then you'll identify those, okay? Or maybe an explanatory video where you're explaining that. But either way, do what fits you. At least choose 5 to 10 distinct logical fallacies, okay? And your final piece should be 5 to 10 minutes in length, okay? So if you're in Dr. Millard's class, you will be working on this independently. If you're in my class, you have the option of working on this independently with a partner or in a group. Okay. Here are some creative pathways, meaning just some ideas that you can take. You don't necessarily have to do. You may want to go ahead and create a bad commercial, okay, where you're trying to sell something ridiculous like anti-tiger rocks or instant genius juice, okay. So just give you some suggestions on that, okay, or maybe you want to go and advertise your parents' vehicle or something like that. Just making a commercial, okay. Or you could participate in a podcast. And all podcasts do not require groups. There are solo podcasts as well, but you can have your own talk show or political debate or a sports debate or something like that, okay? Or a news clip, okay? Where you are pretty much want to engage folks in a discussion and you showcase fallacies that way. Or maybe you want to create an animation, okay? Meaning, create a cartoon or use stick figures and so forth, okay, to display the role play of particular fallacies, okay? Keep in mind, we want to still maintain a culture of respect. So I do suggest role playing and then, also just be considerate within how you talk to people, even though you're role playing and so forth. All right. Here are some recommended tools. I'm not going to read those aloud. Myself or Dr. Millard have given this or will give this to you. And then ultimately we have the rubric. Look what it takes to earn a 4. You have 10 or more distinct fallacies at minimum that are correct. You have pretty much presented these fallacies accurately, okay? The product length is at least 5 to 10 minutes, okay? And then you have your reflection, whereas you either explain why each fallacy is deceptive or, erroneous, okay? You could do that in between the fallacies, or you could just wait to do that at the end, okay? So that's what it takes to earn a 4 in each category. You want to ensure that the file is accessible. You all will submit this either on a Padlet or a Wakilet that myself or Dr. Malad will present, and it needs to be accessible, okay? And you want to ensure that you have time-stamped, maybe if not a time-stamped document, that you showcase some labels within the video, similarly to what the gentleman did, showcasing, okay, where the fallacies have occurred, okay? You could do that by using the check marks, or you could just make an announcement of the fallacy that is about to be reenacted, but you have to ensure that you are mentioning that, okay, within the video. All right. So that's that. Happy learning. All right. And thank you for listening.